Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news. Don't know why I did that, but hello everybody and welcome to the show. Lots to talk about tonight, literally loads of news to catch up with, most of it involving outgoings at Manchester United. But we'll also be talking, and I'm very interested to get your thoughts on this, we're going to be talking about Ten Hag's big transfer warning as the Ineos and Sir Jim Radcliffe review speeds up. Specifically in relation to the January transfer window, Ten Hag finds himself facing some very serious questions that could have major ramifications on his future, but also his future plans in the transfer market, because it doesn't make for good reading when you look at the fees that we've paid and the issues that we've got now trying to raise money. So we'll talk about that as well as the latest on Sancho, Martinez, Scalvini, interesting story about that. Malin loan to buy, Anana missing a Cameroon game to stay at Manchester United. Anthony Martial is apparently in advanced talks with Fenerbahce, Mabry and Dan Ashworth as well. There's lots to get into on the show tonight. But as you can see, I'm wearing my lovely hoodie, fleece-lined hoodie for these cold nights in the UK. You can get one of these as well by scanning the QR code, going to the Boohoo Man website, and you can utilise the code Goldbridge to get an extra 10% off their site-wide sale that they've got at the moment. So if there's an 80% discount, you put Goldbridge in, you get an 88% discount. That's how it works. Loads of stuff you can get hold of there. Chill out wear like me, coats, gym wear, five-a-side wear. They've got it everything at Boohoo Man, so check it out and get some fantastic savings there with the code Goldbridge, or go through the link in the description. But obviously, because it's Boohoo Man, as always, they like to give you a bit of trivia as well as part of their sponsorship, and you need to guess this Manchester United player from these clues. I was born on the 14th of January 1982 in Spain. I'm arguably one of the most decorated players of all time, having won La Liga 6 times, the Copa del Rey twice, the Champions League 3 times, the Club World Cup twice, the Super League once, the European Championships once, and the World Cup once. I played the majority of my career at one club, but moved to United in January 2015 after joining the club for an injury rehabilitation period. For most of my time at the club, I was the backup to David De Gea. However, I did manage 2 appearances, I know who it is now, during my time at United. I left to join United, to join Middlesbrough in 2016 when I ended my illustrious career at the end of the 2016-17 season. Whilst you're getting into the chat there, don't forget, big shout out to Boohoo Man, get 10%, an extra 10% on their sale items across their website with the code Goldbridge. And of course, it's not Nanny. It's not Nanny, so I can't shout anyone for that. It's not Matter either. I'm surprised how many people are struggling with this one, actually. He's a goalkeeper. There we go. Football fanatics. He is a fanatic. It's Valdez, and Yuri also got it, and Brian got it. 3 members got it first, so well done. Get your badge in if you're not a member. Okay, let's fly into the show. Big shout out to Boohoo Man, of course, but lots I want to talk about tonight. Let me just give you a few headlines. Jadon Sancho is expected to be unveiled as a Dortmund player tomorrow. Man United could earn up to £3.5 million from this loan, but Chris Wheeler is reporting that his wage of £290,000, Man United will still be paying £100,000 of it. So we will be paying Jadon Sancho £100,000 a week to go and play for Dortmund. Yeah, I mean, look, you can read that as many ways as you want. Personally, I think Sancho needs to go and play football. That's a good thing. And Man United need to get him out. If he was sat on his arse doing nothing, we'd be paying him 300 grand a week, which is even worse. It's sad that we paid Dortmund £75 million for him, and we're now paying Dortmund £100,000 a week to have our own player. But that sort of feeds into what I'm going to talk about in a minute, this big issue that Ten Hag is going to face around transfers. Now, he didn't buy Jadon Sancho, Ollie did, but it's still rather embarrassing. And I don't think we've heard the end of the Jadon Sancho story as well. And I agree with Kaiser, it's better than nothing, but I don't think we've heard the end of the Sancho story. I think there'll be a big story coming out at some point. I don't know whether he'll do it when he's in Germany, but I know for a fact that they're not happy about the reporting around Sancho. I don't think they like the fact that, all the criticism he's getting. All we can say is that there are always 2 sides to a story, but if there is another side, then we should be told about it, because the reality is, I'm quite comfortable saying I'm not happy with Sancho. I think he's disrespected the fans. I think he's disrespected the club. He hasn't played for the club for 3 months because he won't apologise. That's putting his own morals ahead of the club and the fans. And I don't like that. So that's my stance on it. If there is a different side to the story, fine. But we don't know the other side of the story, so we're left with what we've got. And ultimately, as fans of this football club, when a player doesn't want to play for us and wants to down tools over a petty argument or whatever it is, then it's not a good look. And he can't moan, and people associated with Sancho can't moan when United fans feel like that. Because put yourself in our shoes, that's exactly how it looks. Exactly how it looks. Also, Martinez is targeting a return for the hopefully the Spurs game, but more likely Martinez, Casemiro, Mason Mount will be back for the FA Cup game against Newport or Eastleigh. For the weekend, it looks like we're only going to get maybe Shaw, Ericsson and Maguire back for what will be a massive game. I mean, I hope Ericsson's back because I can't stand the thought of Scott McTominay playing in the midfield against Spurs, but they'll have a few players out as well. And Onana is going to miss the first Cameroon game so that he can play against Spurs. Remember, we're playing Spurs on Sunday, Cameroon's first game's on Monday. Ridiculous situation where he was going to play 2 games in 2 days. Apparently he's going to miss Cameroon's first game. It begs the question, if he's putting Manchester United before Cameroon's first game, why is he bothering going at all? I think the whole situation is rather embarrassing for everybody involved. United, Ten Hag and Onana. Where Manchester United, why is this being played out in January? Did he not know the AFCON was coming up when 3 months ago? Did Man United not know about it? Piss poor planning leads to piss poor performance. And unfortunately, this is where Man United are. It's almost like we get shocked that the January transfer window is happening, or we get shocked that we've got to send a player off to the AFCON. It's a joke, really. But look, that feeds nicely into what I want to start off the show with tonight. Remember, it's an early show tonight because I'm on That's Football doing Middlesbrough Carrick against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup semi-final. Come on the Borough. Come on the Carrick. So I'll be watching a little bit of that. I'm looking forward to watching it. I've not seen a lot of Middlesbrough. In fact, I don't know whether I've watched Middlesbrough this season. That's how little I watch the Championship. But I want Carrick to do well. One of my favourite players, and he's certainly redeeming himself, as is McKenna, since they've left Man United and gone out and done the apprenticeship they needed to do. James says, we say manager stubbornness needs to be called out. That's what Sancho did. I don't agree with it, pinning it, but how can players call it out, says James. Look, Jadon Sancho's not some sort of hero. Whether he's standing up to the manager or not, he's paid by Manchester United. We're Manchester United fans. He's refusing to play for us. That's what pisses me off. I'm not really bothered about the whole argument with Ten Hag, whether he's right or wrong. But what we do know from Matic and many other people is that Jadon Sancho's been late for training numerous times over the last 2 years as well. So anyway, let's move on. Look at this. So, the review of Manchester United gathers pace as Sir David Brailsford does the heavy lifting for Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos. And one of the things they're looking at in this January transfer window is we can't do anything. They're sort of observing it and they have the power to say yes or no, but they're not running things at the moment because they haven't got their director of football or their CEO. And what Ineos are learning very, very quickly is that this is going to be a very similar January transfer window to many others, where United are snoozing and losing because they haven't got any money. They couldn't go for Timo Werner because they didn't have the money to do it unless they get rid of Martial. So Ineos are watching firsthand the train wreck that is Manchester United's transfer policy. But the big question they have, and many of us have, is why Manchester United, in every January transfer window, never have any money left. We saw it at the end of this window where we couldn't afford Amrabat, and we saw it last transfer window where we couldn't afford Gakpo and we couldn't even afford a João Felix loan. Where is all the money? Where is it gone? So in relation to this, Manchester United and Ineos are looking at the situation and basically giving Erik ten Hag a big transfer warning that even if he is going to stay at Manchester United, there is a real issue around his transfer policy, because it's all right saying the manager doesn't sign the players, and I'm 100% behind that. But when there's a pattern emerging, I don't think any manager can bury their head in the sand. And what I mean about that is Casemiro was 30 years of age when we paid £60 million for him with 10 million in add-ons. Now, I don't know whether we're going to hit those add-ons, but 60 million plus 10 is 70. We paid £60 million for a 30-year-old that Real Madrid wanted to get rid of so they could bring in younger players like Tchouaméni, Camavinga, and ultimately Bellingham. What is that all about? Why was that signed off? Why would Erik ten Hag not say, hold on a minute, that's 20 million too more, plus he's on massive wages? Why was that deal ever signed off? I like Casemiro. We should have signed Casemiro. I'm not saying we shouldn't have signed him. What I'm saying here is, why is a manager not observing his director of football and realising that that probably cost you getting Gakpo? I think this is the sort of question Ineos and Sir Jim will be asking. They're not going to blame Ten Hag for the fee. They're not going to blame Ten Hag for the wages. But they're going to say, well, it was widely reported that you wanted Gakpo. Gakpo would have gone for about £30 million. I can see straight away how you could have got Gakpo and Casemiro and Antony if you had had an input in what these fees were. As a manager in football, surely you realise that £60 million for Casemiro at 30 was way over top. I mean, this is a player that Real Madrid wanted to get rid of. There was a negotiation point there. You could have got that down to 50, 45, maybe even 40. Why was it that we paid that amount of money? £60 million plus 10. And in the same summer, we paid, for, what was this one? 82 million for Antony. 82 million in the same summer, almost in the same week. 82 million for Antony with 5 million add-ons. You bought him from Sao Paulo for 15 million euros. Why did you allow that deal to go that high? Or why did you not have an input on it? So you've got Casemiro for 60 million plus 10. You've got Antony for 82 million plus 5 in the same week. Neither of them are worth that much money. I mean, literally, you could have saved 15 on the Casemiro deal. You could have saved 30 on the Antony deal. That's 45 million. You're telling me you wouldn't have liked another 45 million to buy a centre-back or buy Gakpo. It's incredible. But also in the same summer, Martinez, £48.5 million plus 8.5 in add-ons. I mean, Martinez has actually been a good signing, but he was not a £48 million player. So why were we paying £48 million for him? You managed Ajax. How much did you shit all through the corridors on the way out? £82 million for Antony, £48 million for Martinez. At what point in that Ajax title-winning season did you think Martinez and Antony were a combined worth 130 million quid? Why did we pay this money, Eric? Well, it's nothing to do with me, but it is. If the fans can see it and the manager can, if the fans can see it and I can see it, why can't you as the manager see that those prices are ridiculous? Ridiculous. Did you have a say in that? Like, did Richard Arnold and John Murtagh say this is too much money and you went, I really, really want them? Because it's an incredible amount of money, Eric. It's an incredible amount of money. And I think Martinez is a good player and maybe Antony will be. And I think Casemiro is a good player, but there is a price point here. Why are we getting absolutely shafted in your first summer transfer window? And also, another player I really like, Rasmus. Rasmus, we have paid £64 million plus 8. I like some of these players that we've signed. And look, it's not just Ten Hag. We mentioned Sancho. Look at Ahmad. We paid £35 million for Ahmad. £35 million for Ahmad. Look at what we paid for Anthony Martial. Look, this has been going on for a very long time, and I think this is something that Ineos are going to look at and send a rather big transfer warning to Erik ten Hag about, in the sense that it's an absolute shit show, mate, and it's happened on your watch. You may have wanted Martinez. I mean, in fact, you didn't want Martinez, you wanted Timber. So why are you spending £48 million on your backup? Like, why? What? This is what they're going to be saying. When you were at Ajax, have you done GCSE maths, Eric? Like, did you have any involvement in the fees being paid for the players at Ajax, or did you just say or did you get given players? Because I'm struggling to see why you had no inputs on the fees that were being paid when everybody knows you wanted other players. And in that summer transfer window specifically, if even somebody half competent would have saved you 20 million on Antony, 15 million on Casemiro and 10 million on Martinez. And straight away, that is, what's that? 45 million quid. Like, you've got to have responsibility. And what they'll also be saying to him is, you're going to have to take responsibility for it now because you massively overpaid on those players and they're on silly wages. So that's going to really go against you. as we move forward. And that's why we're struggling in the January transfer window as well, because there was money that could have been utilised elsewhere, but you authorised or had a part in some incredibly ridiculous signings. And when you look at Man United over the last 18 months, you could take it longer, we've wasted hundreds of millions of pounds. Not on players, on overpayments. We've overpaid on a ridiculous amount of players over the last 5 to 10 years, but specifically in the last 2 years, incredible amounts of money have we overpaid on. I mean, I think in the just under Ten Hag's era, we've probably spent £100 million too much across all our transfers, quite simply. And I think this is something that I don't know how this is going to impact the summer, but I think Sir Jim's got to come in and release funds. But he's, we've got to buy better. We know that. But I do think there will be a lot of scrutiny based on what has gone before. I certainly don't think Ten Hag can walk into any board meeting and say, get me this, get me that. I think he's in a very weak position when it comes to transfers. And look, Mason Mount's another one. Mason Mount, 55 million with 1 year left on his contract. Who's authorised that? Again, we've spent 15 million too much. He had a bad season at Chelsea, and he's got 1 year left on his contract. 40 million. Get the price down. 55 million. Incredible. With add-ons. Onana. I mean, look, did we overpay on Onana? It might look like it would, but these are things that they're going to be looking at, and these are things they're going to be getting very angry about. How could you blame the manager? These deals were close to deadline day and desperate, says 5T4 David. Well, I don't blame the manager specifically for the negotiations and what was spent, but I do blame the manager for not stepping in. I mean, he knows Anthony. He knows how much he's worth. And, it's his first, he's not, it's his first summer. Are you really going to go, I'm okay with an £80 million signing who's worth 50 at best? Like, of course he's got to take some responsibility. He's not, I don't know whether you can wrap your head around it because it takes a certain kind of, thought process. But as a manager, I've got a budget. And when that budget is being pissed up the wall by 20, 30 million on a player like I know this player like the back of my hand, he has got a veto power, Chris. Exactly. He's got a veto power. And I'm sorry, back end of the transfer window or not, he still had Sancho and Rashford. I'd have said no. I'd have said we can't spend £82 million on Anthony. It's £30 million too much. Ajax have got you bent over and they're going to absolutely screw you. You can't do that deal. But he did it. And I think that was massively naive. Of course, the blame has to stay with Murta and Arnold for signing it off. Incredible naivety. But it doesn't reflect well. A manager has to be observing what we're paying for players because it impacts on what they can do. And look, there's a byproduct here. At the end of the transfer window, we spent £82 million on Anthony. £30 million too much. 4 months later in January, Gakpo and João Felix were available. We couldn't afford either. There is a direct correlation between sanctioning £82 million being spent on Anthony and not getting Gakpo and Felix in January because you can't afford it. Overpaying on players to that extremity meant that we have got nothing left in January. And you could argue that the same thing has happened this summer. And there endeth the lesson, because you probably didn't think you knew where I was going with this. But the last 2 January transfer windows for Man United have been absolutely horrific because we overspent horrifically in the summer. And if we hadn't gone and spent stupid money on Anthony in that final last week, we would have had money left for January to spend on Gakpo or João Felix, or maybe even both. And this summer, if we hadn't overspent on the likes of Mount and maybe a few others, we would have had money left to do a little bit left in the January transfer window. And this is the problem. And this is a real red flag for Ineos to resolve. Stop blaming Ten Hag, says Natasha. Well, Natasha, I'm sorry. If you can't understand what I'm talking about, then I can't help you. At what point have I said Erik Ten Hag has gone out and done the business? I haven't. Arnold's gone, Murta's going, and good riddance. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. But the manager, who has a veto and wants to protect his veto, also has to look at himself and say, God, I've been naive. God, I have not stepped in and said, this is getting out of hand. And he has every right to do that. Man United take ages to do deals, and a manager has got the veto to say that's too much money. Do you think John Murtough and Richard Arnold were dealing with Ajax going up from 50 to 55 to 60 to 65 to 70 to 75 to 80 to 82 without saying to Ten Hag, do you want us to keep going? I mean, you don't understand business and you don't understand football. Like, of course a manager is consulted. Roy, when we bought Roy Keane for 3.6 million and broke the British transfer record, Sir Alex Ferguson wasn't on holiday. He was part of that, beating Blackburn Rovers' bid and making sure we got him. Of course a manager knows. In the olden days, you used to have brown envelopes exchanging and all sorts. So the manager is involved when it comes to signings, and he is involved when it comes to fees. In the sense that he can say no. He can say, let's move on. And that is something that Ineos, quite rightly, are going to look at and say, look, they've got to, and they will do. And this is where I'm going with it. I think Ten Hag absolutely needs to, some people were saying this morning in relation to his stubbornness around McTominay and Onana and Rashford and other players, he's got to take a step back and stop being so stubborn. He's 100% got to take... I would not be kicking and screaming about having a veto on transfers anymore, because actually I think it will help him to be in a position where he's got a director of football and a CEO who take responsibility for these sort of things, because his track record recently on players has been good, but on fees have been really, really bad. And I think that Ten Hag needs to just step away from that, because obviously I back him and I want him to do well. But I think when it comes to transfers, he really has looked a little bit out of his depth at Manchester United. It's almost like he's signing checks the club can't bank, really, because it's, as I said, 60 million plus 10 for Casemiro. Wow, at 30 years of age. Højlund, 64 million plus 8 at 20 years of age. Anthony, 82 million plus 5 in add-ons. Martinez, 48.5 million plus another 9 in add-ons. These are incredible amounts of money. Incredible amounts of money. I like a lot of those signings, but the fees are ridiculous. It's like saying to me, do you want to sign Jude Bellingham for 300 million quid? Well, I like Jude Bellingham, but 300 million quid's ridiculous. That's what I'm saying. I don't dislike the signings, but the prices are ridiculous. If you walk down to your local pub and a pint of beer is £5 and they charge you 12, are you going to keep buying it? You might do if you're thirsty, but come on. We're overpaying and people need to see it for what it is. Want to talk to you about a few topical things as well, but do get your comments in and give me your thoughts on what you're thinking. Good to hear. Long day, I'm okay. Oh, no, Junior's having a little bit of a chat. Mike says these crappy signings have crippled the club. Well, look, they have crippled the club financially. You can't be in the debt that United are in and overspend by £100 million in 18 months. And that is incredible. That is incredible. We talk about the disgusting dividends that the Glazers take out of the football club. And we spoke about what Richard Arnold said, over the last 10 years, we've spent £1 billion and you walk around Carrington and you don't know what you spent it on. Those two things are bad. Dividends, spending £1 billion on not knowing what you spent it on. But in the last 18 months, do the maths, we've overpaid by about 100 million. People say Ten Hag spent 400 million. He has, but he should have spent 3. The players, I've got no issue with the players, but we overspent by £100 million, and you can't argue with that. You can't argue with that. It's incredible. And the positive is Ineos will look at that and go, well, this is just pure incompetence. This is something that we can easily put right. The thing that will the thing that will annoy them is that we ever got it wrong in the first place. How are we doing those sort of things? And it's incredible. It's incredible that some people thought that John Murtough was running a madness in the summer. It's incredible that people thought John Murtough might keep his job, because ultimately it has to stay with the recruitment and the director of football and the CEO. But yeah, Ten Hag needs to wisen up. He needs to wise up very, very quickly, because he didn't buy Sancho, but he doesn't want to be in a position next season or the season after where we're loaning Anthony to Marseille and paying them 100 grand a week to have a player that we spent 82 million pounds on. And that's exactly what's happened with Sancho. We spent 75 million pounds on Jadon Sancho. We probably haven't even paid it off yet. I was told the other day, and look, I don't know whether this is going to come out, and I don't know whether it's true, but it probably is. I was told the other day that whilst Man United will be paying Jadon Sancho's wages in some part to Dortmund, they still haven't paid off the 75 million pounds. Now, I don't know whether that's right. All I remember is, because I remember doing the videos, was that, remember with Sancho, there was this installments thing. It was like, it's the first time we ever really got to know about installments, because it was like 20 plus 20 plus 10. Or it was 10 plus 10. You know, it was a deal that we were going to pay off over 3 years or 4 years or something like that. Now, if that's the case, then we bought Sancho 2.5 years ago. So we may not have finished the payments yet. We might have done. We might not. But imagine that. Imagine if we still haven't paid the fee for Sancho yet, and he's back at Dortmund and we're paying his wages as well, or part of his wages. It's embarrassing. And that's the thing that Ineos will be looking at here, and they'll be going, look, you've spent quite a lot of money on a few players that for various reasons aren't performing, and we can't be having more Sancho situations where they're on ridiculous money and we can't sell them, so we're paying them to go and play for somebody else. And look, Sancho's not on Ten Hag. Ollie bought him, but it just... Again, somebody said to me about 18 months ago, if I didn't know better, I'd be looking at Man United for money laundering. And they were joking. They were joking. But what they meant is the amount they overpay on wages and transfer fees and agent fees is almost corrupt. It's either really, really thick or they're doing something corrupt. And I said, 100%, they're not doing something corrupt. It's just really, really incompetent. But that's how some people look at United. They go, the money they're paying, the way, you know, that's what money launderers do. That's what, like, you know, gangsters do or used to do. You know, you walk into the fish and chip shop and to launder your 100 quid, you pay 100 quid for a bag of chips. Like, that's how it works, money laundering. You're just spending your dirty money to get it into the system. And, yeah, Man United aren't doing that. But for somebody to say, I'm on Man United money laundering, because they look at what we're buying and go, you've spent how much? It is incredible. As I said, it's like walking into your local Sainsbury's to buy a loaf of bread for £1 and spending 100 quid on it. That's sort of United's policy over the last few years. But it isn't. You know, obviously, if there was any corruption there, I think it would have been outed by now. But it's not. It's just pure and utter incompetence at the end of the day. Which is why this January transfer window is all about moving people on. Mind saying happy birthday, Callum, you Pratt. Mark, love you, says Jed. So happy birthday to Callum from Jed. Oh, well, from me as well. Happy birthday, mate. And imagine, Mark, you give a building contractor a job and 400 million, and 18 months later, all you see is a hole dug in the ground. Eric Ten Hag has dug a hole for himself, says JJJ. Well, look. That's not where I was meant to be going with this show. I know some of you are running out of patience, or maybe have run out of patience for Ten Hag. I don't want that to be the case, but we've got to have some real talk. And the real talk is that we are actually having a review. And as part of that review, there's going to be some big questions asked. And these big questions are going to get asked. They are. There's a lot of things that are going to get asked. I mean, they may even look at some player contract renewals over the last 18 months and ask the question why. They might do. They might ask why Rashford's been given 350k a week. But then again, maybe Rashford's contract is bonus related and maybe he's earning 150 grand a week at the moment by not scoring. I don't know. But all those things need to be looked at. Chris says, what's this Todibo news that deals about done but doesn't say for when? I've not seen anything about Todibo, but what I was going to let you know about, because obviously we like to be, you know, ear to the ground on numerous types of deals. And Scalvini, again, is being mentioned as a Manchester United future player. But Apparently, the Mail are saying that Sir Jim Radcliffe will watch Man United live for the first time since buying the club when they host Spurs at Old Trafford on Sunday. Wow, amazing. Great. I suppose, actually, there will be a lot of focus on that, won't they? But I feel that... I'm just looking at this Todibo story. I can't see anything about it, to be honest with it. No, I can't see anything about it. But with regards to Scalvini, who's this young centre-back at Atalanta, again today, a lot of European reports reporting that Man United are moving ahead in that race for Scalvini. Now, I don't know. I mean, I don't think this strikes me as a Ten Hag sort of signing because he's not Dutch. I'm joking. But it could well be the sort of signing that Blanc or Ashworth or Mitchell have highlighted. And apparently might have a release clause of about 44 million quid. It's not going to happen in January. Man United haven't got 44 pence, let alone 44 million. But it is a player that just keeps getting mentioned a lot. So I would bear it in mind. On the striker front, I spoke to somebody today about this because obviously I did the video this afternoon about Anthony Martial and how he might stay. So the situation with the striker situation, Dan, thank you very much for your super chat, is a little bit different from where we were this afternoon. Fenerbahce are apparently really pushing for Martial. It's unknown whether Martial wants to go or not. But if Fenerbahce get Martial, then Manchester United will have to and will be looking into the loan market to bring a player in. Now, that player, as we understand at the moment, would be Malen from Dortmund on a loan-to-buy deal. Now, Man United would not have an obligation to buy. It'd be the same as Sabitzer. It would be an option to buy. But Malen at the moment remains, well, he is now the number one target if Martial leaves, potentially for Fenerbahce. If he doesn't leave, then Man United will leave Malen and any other prospect alone. But that's what we're looking at in relation to incomings. And beyond that, I don't see it. I think the only thing we might do is Todibo if any other club goes in. But I was told, well, we were told by Fabrizio yesterday that Spurs had approached Nice about Todibo and Nice were not interested in taking 35 million. So where are Man United going to get that from? And surely, being as Sir Jim owns Nice, I mean, this is going to be very interesting. I've seen Salzburg sell players to Leipzig for pennies. You know, a £20 million signing that would be £40 million for anybody else. It would be typical United that when we've got the owner of Nice as a partial owner of Man United, we'll pay 50 million for Todibo, you know, and then, well, what's the point in that? So there surely has to be a cheaper deal that we can do there. Ross says, if Martial stays, I've got no faith in Jim or Ineos, says Ross. Well, I don't think you can judge it just on that. I really don't. Mabry is expected to choose between Sevilla and Everton, and Man United apparently going to let it be his choice. A loan deal there. Akil says, Martial 5 million or Malen 5 million in loan for the next 6 months. You know what? I'll put that to the chat. I don't know. Martial or Malen for the next 6 months. Get voting on that. So Mabry should be making his mind up this week. Palistri's going to go as well. You know what my feeling about this is. You've got certain midfielders who've been crap all season who are allowed to stay when we're getting good money offers for them. And yet we're loaning out young players who've never really been given much of a chance. But, you know, it is what it is. And yes, I'll be more blunt. Specifically, I think Mabry deserves game time more than McTominay. But, you know, that's where we are. I also think Pellistri deserves some game time as well. And more interestingly, you might have picked up on this. I saw this story last night with regards to Dan Ashworth. Another report came in saying that Dan Ashworth may be reluctant to come to Manchester United in the sense that he's got a project at Newcastle that he feels committed to, and that Manchester United, as attractive as it is, could be at the wrong time. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to get Dan Ashworth, but it means Man United might have to, you know, write a bigger check. This is something that I've been excited about, because I think Dan Ashworth's a really interesting person to bring in, specifically because of the type of players he buys. If I had one thing that I would say about Dan Ashworth as an observer, is that I've known a lot about him for a long time, and it's not usual for me to know that. I was very aware when Newcastle took him from Brighton, and when they did, I knew why they were taking him, is because he played such an important part in Brighton's recruitment policy, which is elite. In fact, Brighton's recruitment policy is so elite, so many clubs are trying to copy it, but it's going to take them a year or two to even replicate it. It's that good. So Dan Ashworth is somebody that those in the know have known a lot about for a long time. But if I could describe my admiration for Dan Ashworth in a very simple paragraph or so, it would be that what Dan Ashworth really excels in, and it's exactly what Manchester United need, is he is brilliant at identifying recruitment that can go to the next level, not only in ability, but also personality is elite. And I'm looking at Newcastle and I'm thinking, well, Dan Burn, Kieran Trippier, Bruno Guimaraes, Anthony Gordon, what do those players have in common? I'm not saying they're Man United players, but they've been excellent Newcastle United players, and they graft. They get it. Their mentality is absolutely spot on. And when you look at Brighton and their recruitment, and look, I'm not going to ask us all to name all the Brighton players, but the concurrent theme that runs through that Brighton team is, yeah, some of these signings are amazing. Who are they? But what are Brighton players? They're relentless. They're hardworking. They've got the mentality and they've got the talent. So the thing that would excite me about Dan Ashworth is that, and Botman's another one as well, he's excellent at what we're terrible at. He's brilliant at recruiting players with the mentality to go to the club and work their arse off. And that's something United have been terrible at. I can think of some of our signings over the last 5 years, and Dan Ashworth would have said no. And we spent a lot of money on those players as well. So I think it's really interesting that United have been linked to him, but obviously I'm quite concerned about it because he's got such a good deal going on at Newcastle that I think it's a tough deal for Manchester United to do. And of course, I'm fully aware that Newcastle are sitting and waiting in the wings, and their fans are waiting in the wings to go, ha ha, up yours, he's staying with us, which is something I've said to you before, isn't it? I've been concerned about this from day one, is that this link to Dan Ashworth is all great and good, but it's also embarrassing if it doesn't happen because we have spoken about it quite a lot. So look, let's wait and see. But Newcastle, apparently, he feels he's got a project there that he doesn't want to walk away from. And I agree with Muzz, Newcastle's team spirit is unreal. But there's a flip side to the coin as well. If you get Blanc in, he did a great job at Juventus and PSG. And if you get Paul Mitchell in, he's not dissimilar in his recruitment profile. If you look at some of the players that Paul Mitchell has recruited, and look, one or two that stand out straight away are Mane and Son. And I believe both of those were on Paul Mitchell's watch at Southampton and Spurs. And again, you look at those sort of players and work rate, talent. This is what United need. We need that sort of a recruitment policy now. So, look, I'd love to get Ashworth and Mitchell. If we can't get Ashworth and we get Mitchell, I'll be happy. But the more people you've got in them recruitment meetings who know about the right type of personality and the right type of talent, the better. Because let's be fair, and let's not put this on Ten Hag. Let's look at United over the last 10 years. Across all managers, Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, Ollie, Rangnick, Ten Hag. Across the last 10 years, in all of those recruitment meetings, it would be very fair to say that we've completely and utterly missed the homework on players that we've been signing. You know, I can think, you know, I've just gone through 8 and I'm still going 9, 10. I mean, you know, the Pogbas, the Di Marias, the Sanchos, the Sanchez's, just so many players that we've bought with very little background checks into what they're like as a personality, how hard they're going to work, you know, and that needs to change. does. Why aren't we in for Dragusin from Genoa Mark, says Dan. I've probably ruined his name, but we haven't got any money, that's why. If Martial stays, I've got no faith. Dan, thank you very much. Do you mind saying that? Can't blame the timing of the transfers and incompetency by Merter and co. To the manager, though, there was no time for alternatives, says Mario. Of course you can blame it on them. Of course you can. I'm sorry, Mario. I love you, but I completely disagree. If I'm the manager of Man United in the last week of the summer transfer window and Merter says they want 82 million for Anthony, I'm saying no. I'm saying no. Gakpo was available. Just go and get Gakpo. Like, we didn't need to do that deal, and I wouldn't have pushed it as a manager. I would have said, I'm not spending 80... So we've got 82 million. Right. I'll tell you what we're going to do with that 82 million. We're not spending it. Because I'll use that a little bit now and a little bit in January. And that's what should have been done. So I think he has got to take responsibility, I'm afraid. Are you concerned about Mitchell having recruited for a specific system? Poch and Ten Hag play a very different brand of football, says Zane. No, I think we need... no, I've got no problem with that as Zane at all. I think we need to recruit for a specific system because what are you recruiting for at the moment? David Moyes? You know? Ten Pullis? I mean, with all due respect to Ten Hag, I don't think this is the way he wants to play. But we're not recruiting for a system. We can't continue to play this, you know, style of football. It's horrific. It's hard to watch. So we need to rejuvenate and revolutionise the recruitment. Mitchell or Ashworth, the problem still at the club is the Glazers and how much voting rights they have on player recruitments. That's terrifying for us, says Akil. Well, apparently it's going to disappear. Would you like a 34-year-old Cruz at United this summer, says Sherlock Holmes? No. No. I think if you're going to change, you change. I loved having Ronaldo. I loved having Ibrahimovic. I wasn't so sure on Cavani, but in hindsight, I quite liked it. But I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to buy or bring in players that are, you know, approaching their mid-30s. We've got to build for the future. Kobe Mainoo's showing us that. You don't need a 35-year-old former world-class player on the wind down. Go and get younger players. You know, take your time. Mainoo's going to be a superstar. You know, I'd much rather have Mainoo than I would have a Tony Cruz. No more retirement package for old legs, says Savage. On the poll, would you rather have Martial or Malen for the next 6 months? Malen 77%, Martial 23%. So you have spoken. Well done. I've got to go. Because I've got to go and do this watch along. But we will carry on. I'm looking forward to watching Carrick. Middlesbrough against Chelsea. I'll be on there in a couple of minutes for you. I'm back tomorrow morning on the 10 o'clock show as well. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. I make no apologies for that conversation because I think as we delve deeper into this review, then there's going to be more and more uncomfortable conversations to be had. And I think, you know, of course, Ten Hag's not responsible for what we pay on players, but he does have a say. And I think he'll be scrutinised because of it, and he should be. As I said, he should have known £82 million was too much for Anthony and walked. I'm not saying don't buy Anthony, but just don't do it for £82 million. You could have got Gakpo for 35 and gone back for Anthony in the January or the following summer. No more retirement packages, I agree, Savage. Anyway, I will see you over on That's Football in 5 minutes. Thanks everyone for watching. Man United recruitment plus the Glazers equals MLF franchise, marquee big brand signings, which is why we're in the state we are, says Martin Sanders. And on that bombshell, I'll see you over on That's Football.